ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون. وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين. وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين. ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون. ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون. قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون. فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون. إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون، هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون، لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون. سلام قولا من رب رحيم. وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون. ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون. هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون. ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون. ومن نعمر ننكس في الخلق أفلا يعقلون. وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون. واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون. فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون. أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون. أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم. إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آباده في هذه الساعات وفي كل ساعات وليا وحافظا وخائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا باوز بلند صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. अब मुझे कोई सकीना नहीं कहता बाबा, अब मुझे कोई सकीना नहीं कहता बाबा, खैदी कहता है कोई, खैदी कहता है कोई, कोई यतीमा کہتا بابا، میں بیاں کیسے کروں اپنی مصیبت تم سے، کیا کروں اپنے تماچوں کی شکایت تم سے، سنتی ہوں دادی نے خواہ یا تھا تماچا بابا، اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا، نیل رخساروں پہ بینائی بھی جس کی کم ہو، عمر ہو 4 برس اور کمر میں غم ہو، آپ نے دیکھی ہے کیا، آپ نے دیکھی ہے کیا ایسی ضعیفہ بابا، خون بے شیر سے اندازہ کیا تھا میں نے، آپ کا چہرہ تو پہچان لیا تھا میں نے، آپ پہچانو گے کیسے میرا چہرہ بابا، آپ تھے دور تو میں سارے ستم سہتی رہی، آپ تھے دور تو میں سارے ستم سہتی رہی، رو پڑی کوفے کے دربار میں سہ نہ سکی، آپ کے سامنے جب، آپ کے سامنے جب شمر نے مارا بابا، وہ تو بیمار تھی مر جاتی سفر میں آ کے، دفن کرتے اسے بازار میں بھیا کیسے، یہ تو اچھا ہی ہوا آئینہ صغرا بابا، اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا۔
صلوات محمد و آل محمد۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔
مجھ پر غم حسین نے احسان یہ کیا، مجھ پر غم حسین نے احسان یہ کیا، ایک اشک دائمی میری آنکھوں میں رکھ دیا، ایک اشک دائمی میری آنکھوں میں رکھ دیا، اور میں نے غم حسین فضاؤں پہ لکھ دیا، میں نے غم حسین فضاؤں پہ لکھ دیا، تحریر دیکھ کر میری موسم بدل گیا، تحریر دیکھ کر میری موسم بدل گیا، اور نام حسین لیتے ہی آنکھوں میں آ گئے، نام حسین لیتے ہی آنکھوں میں آ گئے، ان آنسوؤں کو کوئی بلانے نہیں گیا، ان آنسوؤں کو کوئی بلانے نہیں گیا، اور تشنا لبی سے کرنی تھی تعمیر کربلا، تشنا لبی سے کرنی تھی تعمیر کربلا، دریا اسی کے واسطے دشمن کو دے دیا، دریا اسی کے واسطے دشمن کو دے دیا، مجھ پر غم حسین نے احسان یہ کیا، ایک اشک دائمی میری آنکھوں میں رکھ دیا، مجھ پر غم حسین نے صلوات رحمت علیہ
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد و اجل فرج.
مومنین درود بھیجیں محمد علی محمد.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد و
نام حسین رقوت ایمان ہو گیا، نام علی رسول کی پہچان ہو گیا، نیزے پر سر حسین غریب الدیار کا، نیزے پر سر حسین غریب الدیار کا، انسانیت کی فتح کا اعلان ہو گیا، نام رسول. درود بھیجیں محمد.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
کیا آمد ہلال محرم کا شور ہے، ارض و سما میں شیو ماتم کا شور ہے، فوج ملائکہ میں اسی غم کا شور ہے، برپائے عشر دیدہ پر، برپائے عشر دیدہ پر نم کا سونی ہے خبر فاتح بدر و حنین کی، آتی ہے ہر طرف سے صدا، آتی ہے ہر طرف سے صدا، شور و شے ہر جا بپا ہے ماتم سلطان بحر و بر، کعبہ سیاہ پوش ہے حجاج نوحگر، ہے چاہ میں حسین کے زمزم کی چشم تر، غمبار رنج و غم سے ہے میں، غمبار رنج و غم سے ہے میں، اعراب کی کمر ساما ہے ماتم شاہ عالم پناہ کا، اٹھتا ہے غل زمین سے فر، اٹھتا ہے غل زمین سے فر، آقا غمشی جنت میں خاص آلو آل ابا کا ہے، اور یہاں سرے جناب رسول خدا کا ہے، تیغ علم سے چاک جگر مشتبہ کا ہے، غمزاری اسلام میں واہ، غمواری اسلام میں واہ، غربتا کا ہے وہ چشم کون سی ہے جو اس غم میں نم نہیں، یہ ماہ کربلا خیا، یہ ماہ کربلا میں خیامت سے رول و ازائے شیم کے درپیش ہے اجل، معلوم کیا آج کے جیتے رہے کہ کل اس عمر بے شتا پر تکیہ ہے بے مال، جائے گا کچھ نہ ساتھ لا، جائے گا کچھ نہ ساتھ لا میں بہرے اللہ، ہاں مجلس عزا میں جو آنسو بہائیں گے، ان آنسوؤں کی قبر میں، ان آنسوؤں کی قبر میں لذت اٹھائے، نعمت ہے مومنوں کے لیے مجلس عزا، نوحہ کہیں ہے اور کہیں ہوتا ہے مرثیہ، سن سن کے حال قتلے شے مشرقین کا، ہوتا ہے شور و حسن، ہوتا ہے شور و حسنا، او حسین دل ٹکڑے ہوتے ہیں شے بے کس کے نام سے، روتے ہیں سب لپٹ کے ذرے، روتے ہیں سب لپٹ کے ذرے، اے امام اس بزم میں شریک رسول خدا بھی ہے، ساتھ ان کے اولیاء بھی ہے اور انبیاء بھی ہے، نالا پسر کے حال پر مشکل کشا بھی ہے، تھامے ہوئے جگر حسن، تھامے ہوئے جگر حسن مشتبہ، سن سن کے مرثیوں کو یہ ریخ جو ہوتی ہے، تم سب کے ساتھ روح اللہ، تم سب کے ساتھ روح علی، ماں بھی روتی ہے، یثرب میں خاک اڑاتی ہے، بقیہ اداس ہے، محبوب ذوالجلال کا روضہ اداس ہے، شبیر ہے سفر میں مدینہ اداس ہے، گھر سائیں سائیں کرتا، گھر سائیں سائیں کرتا ہے صغرا اداس ہے، امت پہ شاہ جاتے ہیں قربان ہونے کو، شیر الہ نکلے ہیں تربت سے رون وہ دھوپ ہے کہ جس میں بدن ہوتے ہیں سیاہ تپتی ہے یہ زمین کے اللہ کی پناہ کھیتوں میں خاک اڑاتی ہے اور خشک ہے گرا بے سایہ ایسی دھوپ میں بے سایہ ایسی دھوپ میں ہے فاطمہ کا ماں سیرا پر خطرہ ہے نا دریا نہ بستی ہے گرمی ہے یا کہ آگ فل گرمی ہے یا کہ آگ فلک سے گرمی کی فضل اور مہینوں کا وہ سفر بچوں کا ساتھ رنجو علم دھوپ کا ظفر ڈر قتل کا کہیں کہیں لٹنے کا ہے خطر سب جاگتے ہیں جاگتے ہو سب جاگتے ہیں جاگتے ہو جاتی ہے ایک قدم پہ لاکھ ترا کے ہراس ہیں چہرے بہادران عرب کے اداس زینب بلائیں لے کے ہوئی بھائی پر فدا دی تہنیت لال کی اور ہنس کے یہ کہا قائم رہے جہاں میں اقبال آپ کا حسرت ہمارے دل کی بھی حسرت ہمارے دل کی بھی لائے کہ خالق کرے کہ ایسا مبارک یہ ماہ ہو جو اس مہینے میں میرے جو اس مہینے میں میرے اکبر کا بے وجہ ہم پہ ہوگی جفا اس مہینے میں اکبر پدر سے ہوں گے جدا اس مہینے میں آئے گی بے کسی پہ بلا اس مہینے میں ہم ہوں گے آسیوں پہ فدا ہم ہوں گے آسیوں پہ فدا اس مہینے ہو شاہ کس طرح کے ہو شاد کس طرح کے عجب غم کا چاند ہے زینب یہ چاند ماہ زینب یہ چاند ماہ محرم کا یہ ماہ فاطمہ کو لحد میں رلائے گا اس ماہ میں مزار نبی تھر تھر آئے گا یہ ماہ شمع خبر علی کو بجھائے گا یہ مانو یہ مانو ہمیں ستم نہ دکھائے گا حیدر کا گھر لٹے گا سے شام تک جاؤ گی سر کھلے ہوئے تو جاؤ گی سر کھلے ہوئے تو شہر شام تک
Can you all recite a loud salawat and please move a little forward, please? As much as possible. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, the Majlis program, Azadari program at Al-Noor, will inshallah continue till the end of 12th of Muharram. All these majalises will be recited by Sheikh Roushandel, eminent Islamic scholar who has kindly accepted to recite these majalises for us. Also, due to the increasing interest from the youth and many others, lots of feedback we are receiving. So, tomorrow, inshallah, after the Majlis, we'll have a Q&A session with Sheikh here. He's going to be staying behind for a little while. So if anybody, both from men and women, if you've got any questions, please do feel free to address and ask those questions to him tomorrow. We have an open Q&A session. It's an open Q&A, so you can ask any questions that's bothering you at the moment, related to the topic or something that you need to address by your own. So, before I invite Sheikh, let me have the opportunity to remember all the marhumeens, those who have been with us until the last year, who have contributed a great deal in establishing Azadari, and of course, our today's sponsor, Brother Sabdar Hussain and his marhumeen. Incidentally, his mother's death anniversary is today. Khamar Sultana. So may I request you all to recite a Surah Fatiha for Khamar Sultana and all the marhumeen of Millat Jafri, inshallah. Can I also request you to recite one more Surah Fatiha for our beloved Abbas Bhai, Owen Bhai, and so many other Mu'mineen who used to be, they used to all the time contribute and be present here at Al-Noor for every single function. Immensely missed here today. So please recite Surah Fatiha for them as well. I would like to also take this opportunity to thank you all for your generous contribution. One of the Mumina, one humble lady, she has donated yesterday 2 fans for Al-Noor. Please recite a loud salawat for the Balandi Darajat. Allahumma sallallahu Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. We pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to kindly accept her humble services and please reward her amply and aptly, inshallah, for her dunya and akhirah, inshallah. May I now request Sheikh Hassan Roushandel to please come onto the member to recite the lecture tonight. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, Bawazibulan Salawat.
के जैसा दूसरा कोई नहीं, रात दिन मातम हुआ लेकिन थका कोई नहीं, रात दिन मातम हुआ लेकिन थका कोई नहीं। अब 2 बैयत के तलबगार, सबको पता है कि कौन था, एक तो पहला खलीफा और दूसरा यजीद लानतुल्लाह अलैह, उनके मुंह पे मीठा थप्पड़ है। तालीबे बैयत के घर आज क्यों सन्नाटा है? तालीबे बैयत के घर आज क्यों सन्नाटा है? सब गूंगे हो गए या कोई बोलता नहीं, सब गूंगे हो गए या कोई बोलता नहीं। बरहमते 4 मासूमन अलैहिस्सलाम बुलंद सलावत।
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद वअज्जल फरजहुम। अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنام حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الهداة المهديين ولا سيما على بقية الله في العالمين صاحب العصر والزمان روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope and pray, inshallah, you're all doing well. And I pray, inshallah, that Allah blesses this gathering with the remembrance of Him, with the remembrance of His Prophet, the remembrance of the family of His Prophet. May Allah bless you all, insha'Allah, with His utmost level of blessings, and insha'Allah grant us the opportunity of learning from the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, learning about the purpose of their existence, learning about the things they sacrificed for in order for us to learn. Please recite loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It is narrated that Imam Hussein alayhi salam mentioned about the purpose of his uprisal, about the purpose of his movement, you may say, that he has mentioned, Inni lam akhruj ashira, wala batira, wala mufsidan, wala zalima. I did not start this movement. I did not uprise. I did not do this except I didn't do it as a person who was seeking fame. I didn't do it as a person who was seeking attention. I didn't do it as a person who was seeking power. I didn't want corruption. None of these things that usually people start a movement. ولكن خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي رسول الله. The reason was that I wanted reform. There were things that were wrong. We mentioned yesterday that the people were fasting, were praying, were going to Hajj. They were giving their zakat and khums. But there was something which was missing. That was the spirit of the movement. That was the spirit of the teachings of the Prophet. That was the reason why the prophets were sent in the first place. أن آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وأسير بسيرة جدي وأبي أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to discuss those things that for Imam Hussein alayhi salam was important and were among the teachings of the Prophet that were neglected after the Prophet. Inshallah, we sit here, we have the opportunity to discuss them and hopefully implement them in our lives so that we are not among those people who Imam Hussein alayhi salam wanted to create reform for. So that we create the reform ourselves, inshallah, so that prepares us for the reappearance of our Imam, inshallah. Please recite the salawat. I'm going to mention 3 points before I get to the main topic of today's lecture. Point number 1 is when we talk about istighfar, the topic for last night or yesterday, I must say, was istighfar and how it can be empowering rather than depressing, if we understand the concept correctly. Now, there is a very important point about istighfar I need to mention, and that is, when you do istighfar, the moment inside your heart you feel a regret, you feel that you're sorry for what you have done, that is considered as istighfar. If it's something that is related to God's rights, huququllah, that's istighfar, full stop. If it's something that's related to other people's lives and it's in relation to someone else's right, then your responsibility is to go and ask for forgiveness or to give compensation. Now, having said that, we need to separate between two things. One is God forgiving us, and two is the process of healing that you may have to go through after having, let's say, engaged in a particular act for a long time. Sometimes inside your heart, you feel sorry, you feel ashamed, you don't want to do something. But in practice, you keep on repeating it. You fall into the sin again and again and again. What's very important for us to understand is that the feeling inside our heart that we know we don't want to continue this. We know we're sorry for it, we're ashamed, and we want to be this good person, this pious individual, the one who is on the right path. There is a difference between wanting that and in the real life being able to then engage in certain practices and habits in order to overcome the negative habits and the sins that you had. There is a huge difference between the two. Some people say, I am in this loophole. It's not called a loophole. I forgot what it's called. But whatever it is, I'm in this situation, I'm stuck. I keep on repeating, right? And my question is, does this mean God hasn't forgiven me? If God had forgiven me, then I should have been able to let go of this. I should have been able to, overnight, put this sin aside. There is a difference between the two. Sometimes some things are addictions. You may need to seek help in this world. You may need to go and see a specialist in order to learn how to put it aside. That is one thing, and then God's forgiveness and love and mercy is a completely different thing. You would be able to tap into that and use that as something that can help you in the process of healing. But just because you haven't managed completely to put the sin aside, it doesn't necessarily mean that God hasn't forgiven you. This is a very important distinction I thought as I needed to make. Now, when we are talking about sins, we need to change our perception of God. What does God expect from us? Does God expect me as an individual or you as an individual to be perfect? To be at your top game, A game, all the time? Or does He know the reality of your life that a human being falls into mistakes and can also perhaps learn from his mistakes? Which one is it? When you look at the Quran, you see the Quran talks about the muttaqeen, but doesn't say the muttaqeen are those people who never commit any sins in their life. No, because that's unrealistic. But it talks about muttaqeen and sets certain conditions that if you do fit the conditions, if you do apply them in your life, then there is hope that you are among the muttaqeen, even if at some point in your life you commit a sin and make a mistake. What is the verse that talks about this? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Who are the muttaqeen? وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ. Those people who, when they commit something bad or when they oppress themselves. It doesn't say if, God forbid. No, it says when. God understands that we make mistakes in life. It happens. The hope is to reach a level that we don't make mistakes, but at this point, of course, everyone makes mistakes. Sins, greater sins or minor sins, mistakes, big mistakes, small mistakes. So it says when it happens, what's their reaction? The reaction is key. You know what we said about istighfar is me admitting to it. Okay, I put my hands up and I say, I made a mistake. الَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ. Number one, they remember God. They don't completely close that chapter in their mind of remembering God. Oh, I made a mistake. God, I'm sorry. ذكروا الله فاستغفروا لذنوبهم. They ask for forgiveness for their sins. Immediately, I remember God. And me remembering God results in me asking for forgiveness, because what do I remember of God in that moment? I remember that He is Arhamur Rahimin. He is Tawwabur Rahim. He's the one who accepts the tawbah. Okay, ذكروا الله فاستغفروا لذنوبهم. They ask for forgiveness. And then over here in brackets, the verse says something very nice. It says, وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. In brackets. By the way, who else is there that would forgive the sins? Is there anyone else that would forgive sins other than God? There isn't. So you have nowhere else to go. Like in some other munajat, it says, فَقَدْ هَرَبْتُ إِلَيْكَ. Oh Allah, I'm running towards you. I'm running away from everything towards you. وَوَقَفْتُ بَيْنَ يَدَيْكَ. And I'm standing before you. مُسْتَكِينًا لَكَ مُتَضَرِّعًا إِلَيْكَ. I admit that, look, I have nowhere else to go. It's not that I have somewhere else to go that they can forgive my sins and they can compensate for it. No, I don't have anywhere else to go. So accept me. And I admit to that. وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Okay, so condition number 1, ذَكَرُ اللَّهِ. Condition number 2, فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ. وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. There's a third condition. وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. They don't insist on what they do while they know. Baba, you know it's wrong. Develop this mentality that you don't insist on it. It may take a while for you to put it aside. This is where we make a mistake. Because we expect perfection from ourselves on the spot, in the moment, and we know it's unrealistic, the natural defense mechanism of the mind takes you towards the direction that you start ignoring the mistakes that you make. And you cover it up because it's too difficult to deal with it. Don't do that. Because you know that God knows the healing process can take a while. You need to grow. And at the same time, you're not insisting on it. وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. They don't insist. These people are called whom? People who God may or may not like. No. These are people who God calls the muttaqeen, the pious people. The pious people are not those who are superficial, are not those who are like superheroes that don't make any mistakes and they're just like robots. No, they are people who have learnt the laws and they know how to maneuver. Even if they make a mistake, even if they commit a sin, they know exactly where to go and how to fix it. That is why we've been speaking about the system so much in these nights. God has created a system, there is a sunnah. If you learn it, then you know how to go through, pass the hurdles, and succeed, inshallah, without having to fall into difficulty, without having to fall into, what's the good word? Hopelessness, despair. Please recite a salawat. And this is how the Imams have demonstrated it for us. In one munajat, very beautiful, the Imam is speaking to God and he's saying, look, وَإِن كَانَ قَدْ دَنَا أَجَلِي. If my death has become closer to me, the time has become closer. وَلَمْ يُدْنِنِي مِنْكَ عَمَلِي. My actions have not brought me closer to you. You know, if my death is near and my actions have not brought me closer to you, what does he say here? Imagine in this moment where it is the time for depression to creep in. It's the time for hopelessness to creep in. What else would bring you hopelessness when you see you don't have any time and you know your actions have not done anything good for you? وَإِن كَانَ قَدْ دَنَا أَجَلِي وَلَمْ يُدْنِنِي مِنْكَ عَمَلِي فَقَدْ جَعَلْتُ الْإِقْرَارَ بِالذَّنْبِ إِلَيْكَ وَسِيلَتِي. Oh Allah, I know my actions haven't helped me, but I will use admitting to my mistakes as a means towards you. The same way if I had a good deed, that good deed would be playing the role of a means towards God. The same way I'm going to use admitting to my mistakes as a means to get me close to you. This is His system. This is the type of God we are talking about. This is the God that He says about Himself. He's the one who يُبَدِّلُ السَّيِّئَاتِ بِالْحَسَنَاتِ. When you go to Him, you've come to Him with a backpack full of wrongdoings. But when you admit to them, He would not only forgive them, but He's going to change them into good deeds now. The same way the bad deeds were distancing you from God, now the same bad deeds, after admitting to them and deciding not to repeat them, is going to help you get closer to Him. Now, how is that going to happen? It's not just a bad deed though. I'm going to explain it inshallah in the second half of the lectures, where we are going to talk about a very important thing, and that is God teaches us not only through the good things in the world, but the system of God is such that even through evil, good is born. So not only God creates good from good and multiplies them, but God also teaches people through evil. The evil gives birth to something good, and that's the meaning of inna ma'al usri yusra, which I'm going to explain inshallah. Please recite the salawat. Can everyone please stand up from the women's side and the men's side? If you can please get up and come one step forward with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the Imams introduced this version of God to us. The version that by admitting to your weakness, you immediately attach yourself and connect yourself to Allah's greatness. In the munajat of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the one which is famous, it's called the munajat of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Kufa, the Masjid of Kufa, where he says multiple lines along this line that says, Allahumma mawlaya ya mawlay, Anta al-qawi wa ana al-dha'if. You're the strong and I am the weak. Okay, so am I to now go and become hopeless, and when I admit to my weakness, that means I'm a weak person, that's it? No. Immediately, because the moment you admit to your weakness, there is a possibility of you losing your confidence. There is a possibility of you losing your self-worth. There is a possibility of you losing your self-esteem. So immediately after that, he attaches this line, وَهَلْ يَرْحَمُ الضَّعِيفَ إِلَّا الْقَوِيِّ. When the Imam talks about this, he says, and who is it other than the strong, the powerful, the mighty, that can be merciful towards the one who is weak? When our Imams talk like this, you would see that in their lives, they never had their heads down, demonstrating to people weakness, but they had their heads up, their shoulders back, confidence, humbleness, humility, but confidence. This is very important. Where did they get that from? By going to God and putting their forehead on earth and saying that I am da'if. Antar Allahumma mawlaya ya mawlay, antar raziq wa anal marzuq. If I had ever thought that I am the one who's providing means for myself, it's not me. It's you. I have nothing. Okay, so what does that do to him? He immediately connects himself to God and says, وَهَلْ يَرْحَمُ الْمَرْزُوقَ إِلَّا الرَّازِقِ. Is there anyone other than Raziq who would help the marzuq? So immediately you connect yourself to the divine, you connect yourself to the source of power, you connect yourself to the source of energy, to the source of rizq, the source of ilm, to all of that. So this person not only doesn't become hopeless, but he actually rises. Allah rises this person up, raises him. So this is how the Imams have depicted it. Now some people may ask another question, very important one. They say when the Imams are talking to God and they talk about themselves as if they are these individuals who've committed so much sins and they're so low and weak, while in reality they knew that they weren't. So if they are saying that I have committed a sin, what do they mean? Did they really commit a sin? Or they're just pretending? Or they're doing it in order to teach us? So these are the different explanations that people give, right? Some people say, yes, the Imam is saying that I am the worst and worst of creation. I am the one who is the most in need. I have nothing in my life. I have no ilm, I have no power, I'm a sinful being. So some say he's saying this, he's pretending. He's saying it in order for us to say it as well, right? It doesn't apply to him. It just applies to us. He's just saying it so we learn. But some of our scholars have a deeper understanding of this. And they say that when the Imam is saying this, he actually means it. He really means it. He sees himself in that position. Okay, so what do you mean then? When he says, I'm sinning, how is he sinning? When he says, I am faqir, I have nothing. I am in need of you. No, look at him, he's got everything. So the explanation they give is very interesting. They say, imagine this cup. Now it's become very famous now, very popular. People are using cups and bottles these days. One of my friends used the bottle as well. It went kind of viral, the video, in his lecture. So imagine this cup. This is, imagine the cup, the capacity of my knowledge, right? And the amount of water inside it is the amount of knowledge I have. Imagine I have this much capacity to have knowledge, and this is how much I filled it with water. So this is how much I can gain more knowledge, correct? So there is, for example, an ayatollah, there is someone who's allama. His capacity is probably like a container. I don't have a container here, but just imagine a container. Like a 2-liter container, a 2-liter bottle. That's his capacity, and imagine he's filled it with half. So he already has more knowledge than me. And then he has the half empty. But what's very important to understand is that the bigger the container gets means the bigger the capacity the person has to receive, but it also means the more it becomes in need of water to fill it. So if my container is a huge container, I am more in need of the supplier than the one who has a small container, correct? We're all in need of the supplier, but my need now, I need 20 liters of water. And if the water cuts, I have 20 liters, minus 20 liters of water. But if the water cuts, this has minus, 100 cc water. So when the Imam is talking to God, he sees God as the source of everything that he has. And all that he has, he's not ignoring it whatsoever. It's not this pseudo akhlaqi humility thing that, they completely ignore what they have. Oh, mashallah, you've got this house, you've got so much knowledge. No, I have nothing. No, you actually have something. He's not denying what he has, but he's saying to God that now that I have this much, I am more in need of you than ever. And the more you increase my capacity, the more I become in need of you. He's acknowledging reality here. And when he talks about sins, he talks about potentials. He says, look, if my container now is increasing, how much potential do I have for this container to increase in capacity? It's unlimited. But as a human being, he is limited at the end of the day. So he's asking for forgiveness for all the small moments that instead of remembering God, instead of increasing in his container, for example, he spent among people. This is something the Prophet used to do. When he said, it's narrated that the Prophet has said, during the day, I have a lot of affairs, basically. I go among people come up to me. There are moments of ghafla that happen, even for the Prophet. Okay? He's among people, there's the daily affairs. So he says, إِنَّهُ لَيُغَانُ عَلَىٰ قَلْبِي. I feel that something like a dust covers my heart during the day. وَإِنِّي لَأَسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ سَبْعِينَ مَرَّةً فِي كُلِّ يَوْمٍ. And in order to remove that, I ask Allah for forgiveness 70 times during the day, every day. So even for the Prophet, for his level, maybe it's not a sin, but istighfar, going back to God and remembering God and asking him for forgiveness, for the Prophet, even that one moment of ghafla that may happen during the day is something that he would ask for forgiveness to Allah. So they actually did see themselves in that situation. It's not asking for forgiveness for sins, but there's so much beyond this realm of sin and not sin. It's not that if someone doesn't commit any sins, then that's it. They're all categorized in the same category. It's not the case. There's so many different levels and layers beyond the layer of sins and staying away from sins and infallibility. So this is, I thought, a very important point to mention, that even for the Imams, it was real, but it empowered them. It gave them hope. It gave them a drive to continue life on earth, not the opposite. So we hope and pray, inshallah, that Allah gives us the tawfiq to be able to connect to these teachings the same way the Imams connected, and inshallah implement them, apply them in our lives. Please recite the salawat. In the last 7 or 8 minutes, I will start the topic that we are inshallah going to continue tomorrow. So speaking of the system, we talked about this system that God has created and we need to learn about it. We want to be smart, wise students of this system. We said that tawakkul is something that can help us reconnect with Him. We mentioned in the next nights, we talked about the topic of istighfar as well. And tonight I want to talk about one specific thing which is related to what we have been discussing. And that is, when we look at the system of God, we realize that pain, difficulty exists, and we know that. And God mentions, and doesn't shy away from mentioning in the Quran, that, hey, when I am talking about a life, the same way I talk about the muttaqeen, the mu'mineen, and these are people who have in their hearts, they have itminan, they have certainty, they reach a level where nothing can shake them, etc. I mention very clearly that their life in this world is not necessarily a life which has no difficulty or hardship and these things. Rather, to the contrary, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. He says, indeed, he says it with a form of emphasis in this verse, in the beginning of it. Indeed, we will test you. بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ, fear. وَالْجُوعِ, hunger. نقص من الأموال, loss of wealth. نقص من الأنفس, loss of dear ones, of lives. والثمرات, and any form of blessings and bounties you have in your life. Or let's say, some say fruits. But in general, whatever is a form of blessing in your life, we will test you with that. But when he says we will test you with this, then immediately he says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, give glad tidings to the patient. Whatever we're discussing these nights is in order for us to develop the mindset and learn about God's system and God Himself, so that we can more easily or easier than before perform patience in our lives. When we understand the system, we don't suddenly lose it when something small happens. When we understand the system, and what is this system? This is the important point here. The system is what I mentioned, that not only God contributes towards our growth through the things He gives us, but He also contributes towards our growth through the things that He takes from us. Some people ask, why does God test me? Why is it that He tests us? Is it because He wants to know? There are some verses in the Quran that say, in order for God to know. So some people explain it this way, and they say, yes, in order for Him to know how you perform. But we all know that God already knows how we are going to perform. So what's the point of the tests and trials in our lives when difficulty comes? Often, when you do dua for something, you're asking Allah for something. You say, oh Allah, give me guidance. Oh Allah, give me a good life. Oh Allah, give me X, Y, and Z. Because you're asking in this world, God has to take you through the process of reaching there. And nothing in this world is arbitrary. So if you're asking for something that you do not have the capacity to receive, what happens is that you go through some experiences in life in order for you to develop what you need in order to reach your destination. There is a growth that's necessary for you, and that growth sometimes can only be achieved through certain trials in your life. So next time when something difficult happens, instead of suddenly losing it, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why not to someone else? God, why did you need to do this to me? Could you not have taken this away from me? Try to have a little bit more of patience and see that how is this? I know it's very difficult. That's why sometimes in the moment we just have to survive. But often when people survive the difficulties, they look back. Many a times you see that I get it now. Why did this happen to me in my life? Because there was a lesson I needed to learn in order for the continuation of my journey in my life. The whole system is an ultra intelligent system that God has created. It's super intelligent. It reacts to everything. If you want to reach a destination, it takes you there, but it needs to take you through the process. And sometimes the process is difficult. But nothing happens without a reason. This is the meaning of it. And when we look at the Quran tries to teach this It says, for example, the verse, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We created human beings in difficulty, in hardship. Some people use this verse to say, hey, why are you asking for so much positivity, for growth and everything, whilst the Quran says everything is difficult? Just, we have to live difficult lives and deal with it. The Quran says it's difficult, but the Quran doesn't say moan throughout the whole difficulty and be ungrateful and don't look at the deeper meanings of it and don't grow from it. The Quran doesn't say any of these things. The Quran sets the rule. He says, look, this world, whatever you want to do, you want to have a good income, you have to wake up earlier in the morning. You have to put in the work. This is what fi kabad means. Difficulty, yes, if you sit down and you want it, you ask for it, it's not going to come to you. You have to make the move. This is what kabad means. And this movement is difficult. Of course it's not easy. But it doesn't mean that then you have to be miserable throughout the whole process of this difficulty. That's why when we look at the verses of the Quran, we see very beautifully that God, when He talks about some of the difficulties that He has given the prophets, He immediately talks about what came out of it. So you know that even from the difficulties, good things come out of it. Good things come out of it. And one of the deeper meanings of the verse, Inna ma'al usri yusra. Let me mention the shallow meanings, then I'll mention the deep one. One shallow meaning of it is, after every difficulty there is ease. A little bit deeper would be, no, the verse doesn't say after, it says with. So usually, when you're going through a difficulty, there's always something good happening in your life as well. There's always something easy and ease. So remember, even with the usr, there's always a yusr. Don't forget that. Don't neglect that. That's a deeper meaning. But a deeper meaning than that is that every single usr, difficulty, is a womb to something which is yusr, which is ease. And you're not going to be able to appreciate ease unless you go through the difficulty, unless you see the opposite. And this is the key line, and I'm going to finish. You need to be able to have a perception of the opposite in order to be able to appreciate what you have now. So if you have something good now, you need to know what the bad, the evil is. And sometimes when you go through difficulties and pain in life, is in order for you to be able to appreciate what the opposite of it is. If it wasn't for the difficulties, you'll never be able to appreciate the ease. Ease will not even be ease, philosophically speaking. Ease is not ease unless the opposite of it can be understood. So I will leave you here. Inshallah, tomorrow night, I will share a very interesting story from Prophet Dawood alayhi salam, how God, before giving him his mulk, his kingdom, He had to teach him a lesson. And He took him through the lesson, and he made a mistake in it, and he realized, he came back, and as a result of him coming back, he was given the kingdom. Inshallah, tomorrow night, we're going to mention that. Please recite the salawat. Tonight, inshallah, we are going to remember one of the dear companions, the loyal companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He is no one other than Habib ibn Madahir. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا مظلوم يا أبا عبد الله. One of the loyal companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who joined him in an old age, was Habib ibn Madahir. Who's Habib ibn Madahir? Habib ibn Madahir is the lover of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Habib ibn Madahir is the lover of Imam al-Mujtaba. On the night of Ashura, when the Imam gathered the companions, he informed them that their shahada the next day is going to happen. He asked them to engage in worship. Spend some time with your Lord tonight. During a moment on that night, the Imam and some of the companions took a break. Why did they take a break? They began to gather the thorns from around the tent. One of the companions asked Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, why is it that you're gathering these thorns? It is said that the Imam responded, tomorrow my children will be running around here. I do not want to see these thorns hurting them. At the moment, it is said that Lady Zainab came towards Imam al-Hussein. Now, who is Zainab? Zainab is al-Masa'ib. Zainab has seen a lot. Zainab has seen the martyrdom of her father. Zainab has seen the martyrdom of her brother. Zainab has seen the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. So Zainab came to her brother and said, oh brother, I'm not sure about the loyalty of your companions. Do you think these companions will stay with you tomorrow? Do you think they can bear the difficulty? It is said that Habib ibn Madahir overheard Lady Zainab and he rushed towards the companions. He said to the companions, Ya companions of Imam Hussein, the daughter of Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying this about you. We have to show our loyalty towards her. We need to prove that we are loyal towards the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They all go to her and say, Ya Aqilata Bani Hashim, how can you question our loyalty? We pledged our allegiance to your brother Abu Abdullah. We will show you, Lady Zainab. And on the day of Ashura, as the battle is going on, the time of Salat approaches, and one of the companions of Imam Hussein says, I would love to see my Lord having prayed. So Imam al-Hussein asks the enemies, give us some time, we would like to pray, and stop attacking us during this moment. As they try to pray, the enemies say, look at what the enemies say to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The enemies say to Imam Hussein, your prayer is not accepted. Who are they saying this to? Habib ibn Madahir replies, O enemies of Allah, you think the prayers of the grandson of the Prophet is not accepted, but whose prayer is accepted? Your prayer? The enemies did not want Imam al-Hussein to pray. They came and approached him, but Habib ibn Madahir was there defending the Imam. they began to attack Habib. What does Habib do? Habib takes down the enemy, but then the tribe members attack him, they ambush him. Imagine Imam Hussein watching Habib being attacked. They injure him. They separate his head in front of the Imam. They start playing with the head of Habib. But brothers and sisters, there came a time in Sham where another head was played with. When Yazid was playing with the head of Imam al-Hussein, La yawm ka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah, ala la'natullah على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا حُسَيْنًا وَوَيْلَا
اونچا رہے اپنا علم، 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 جب تک ہے دور آسماں، جب تک ہے دور آسماں، سن لے یہ ہر پیر و جوان، سن لے یہ ہر پیر و جوان، آواز پر شبیر کی بڑھتا رہے یہ کارواں، رکنے نہ پائے یہ قدم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، ہر قلب پر چھاتے چلو، ہر قلب پر چھاتے چلو، دنیا کو بتلاتے چلو، دنیا کو بتلاتے چلو، ایک ایک محاذ ظلم کی تصویر دکھلاتے چلو، ہر دل میں بھر دو شیخ غم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، کب تک نہ مانے گا کوئی، کب تک نہ مانے گا کوئی، وہ وقت آئے گا کبھی، وہ وقت آئے گا کبھی، ہر قلب پر چھا جائے گا اپنا حسین ابن علی، دنیا رہے زیر قدم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، جب بھی کوئی مشکل پڑی، جب بھی کوئی مشکل پڑی، دنیا اسی در پر جھکی، دنیا اسی در پر جھکی، سینوں سے بل کھا کر ادھر اٹھی صدائیں یا علی، نکلا ادھر باطل قدم، اونچا رہے اپنا علم، اونچا رہے ये परचम अब्बास है, ये परचम अब्बास है, टूटे दिलों की आस है, टूटे दिलों की आस है। अब तक इसी परचम तले जिंदा किसी की प्यास है, जिसने सहे लाखों सितम, ऊंचा रहे अपना अलम, ऊंचा रहे अपना अलम, ऊंचा रहे अपना अलम, ऊंचा रहे अपना अलम। Hussein, Hussein, امشب شب ماتم حسین است، امشب شب ماتم حسین است، عالم همه در فغان و شین است. امشب شب ماتم حسین است، امشب شب ماتم حسین است، عالم فغان و شین است. امشب شب ماتم حسین است، امشب شب ماتم حسین است، عالم همه در فغان و شین است. این نور هدای عالم این است، این نور هدای عالم این است، این شمس ضحای مشرق این است، این بدر و دجای آفرین است. این شب جهان حسین حسین است، غم حسین است. این شب شب ماتم امشب شب ماتم حسین است، امشب شب ماتم حسین است، عالم اهل با حسینا، اهل دو جهان با حسینا، دارند فغان با حسینا، چو ماتمیان با حسینا. امشب جهان حسین حسین است، فغان و شین است. امشب شب ماتم حسین است، امشب شب ماتم حسین است، عالم همه در فغان. حوران و جنان با حسینا، حوران جنان با حسینا، بر خاک تبان با حسینا، فریاد کنان با حسینا. امشب جهان حسین حسین است، امشب شب ماتم حسین است، امشب شب ماتم حسین است، عالم همه در فغان و شین است.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن